Our objective of this video is to share John Marshall Bank's story, our partnering bank, and identify how the bank responded to the closures as a community bank. John Marshall Bank is headquartered in Reston, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. John Marshall is a commercial-focused community bank with $2.2 billion assets year-end 2023. The bank was founded in 2006 and is one of the fastest-growing banks in the D.C. metro area. By examining John Marshall Bank's response to the challenges faced by the three closed 2023 regional banks, our case study analysis uncovers the strategies and practices that enabled John Marshall Bank and other community banks to remain resilient financial pillars of their communities during uncertain times.
Through our financial analysis, we find that John Marshall outperformed its local peers in all years except 2023 on a return on average assets basis.
This figure shows John Marshall's return on average assets, represented here by the blue line. This chart highlights the bank's consistent margin advantage over its local peers, represented here by the red line. This figure shows John Marshall's cost of deposits, loan portfolio yield, and the average federal funds rate from 2022 to 2023. We find that rising deposit costs, the March bank closures, and the restructuring of John Marshall's investments to be responsible for the reduction in return on assets for 2023. As shown in the previous figure, the yield John Marshall sees on its loan portfolio is relatively stable with regard to interest rates. This is partially due to the bank's strong commercial real estate presence, as shown here in this breakdown of the bank's loan portfolio. This figure shows John Marshall's return on average assets, represented here by the blue line. This chart highlights the bank's consistent margin advantage over its local peers, represented here by the red line.
We also find that John Marshall was built from the ground up to specialize in commercial lending. The bank's management has extensive experience in commercial real estate lending, which it leverages to provide superior service quality.
The 2023 closures were characterized by 1. A reliance on uninsured depositors, 2. Significant depositor concentrations, and 3. A gamble on interest rate risk.
John Marshall Bank differs from the closure banks because of its strong focus on local connections, prioritizing relationships, and community engagement. In this chart, we first observed that community banker sentiment declines in the second quarter of 2022, with the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes becoming a reality. Then the CSBS Community Banker Sentiment Index reaches a record low in the second quarter of 2023, following the 3 large regional bank closures.
So John Marshall Bank differs from the closure banks with its strong focus on local connections, prioritizing relationships, and community engagement.
Following the bank closures, John Marshall's ALCO strengthened its liquidity management practices through enhancements on their contingency funding plan and running scenario tests that mimic the runs that happened last spring, ensuring that the bank could manage a similar, yet very unlikely, run on deposits. John Marshall Bank maintains a conservative credit culture, favoring borrowers with high creditworthiness and low debt backgrounds. By maintaining this conservatism, John Marshall's ALCO team can effectively safeguard its assets against the current market volatility.
From John Marshall Bank's official LinkedIn account, we will now show a customer testimonial and post highlighting John Marshall Bank's community involvement.
I think a great example of how responsive John Marshall Bank has been was when the PPP loans were coming out from the federal government. And I went out to 4 different banks in the city, and all on the same day, indicating that we plan to apply for a PPP loan and what could they do to help us through the process. And the first one I heard back from was John Marshall Bank, and they ushered us through the process.
John Marshall is staying on top of pending legislation such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's amending of Regulation B to make changes to small business lending under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. This new rule will require John Marshall to collect certain new data from its customers that currently does not track.
John Marshall Bank exclusively uses LinkedIn as its official social media account. Strategically, as a commercially focused community bank, LinkedIn gives the bank the most direct access to its desired business audience. Social media helps drive profitability at John Marshall Bank due to its ability to reach new prospects, inform prospects and customers of promotions, and the bank's ability to curate a professional image. Through posting client testimonials and community involvement, the bank positions itself as a local, knowledgeable, and expert financial institution which drives new customer relationships to the bank.
We would like to thank John Marshall Bank for partnering with us for our case study research, the CSBS for sponsoring the 2024 Community Case Study Competition, our faculty advisor Carl Larson, and JMU student Nolan Rentz for video production. And thank you for watching.